Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Chrissy Hodges. I am an advocate particularly for OCD, Pure O, which is also the title of my book, Pure OCD. It's a memoir about my experience with it. I'm a certified peer support specialist here in the state of Colorado. I work with people all over the world to provide support and normalization for OCD, and I also can do referral consultations if you're looking for therapists in your area and resources. And I'm the founder of OCD Game Changers and co-founder of OCD Peers. Yay! We run groups every single day. We try to stagger them throughout the day to accommodate all of the different time zones. Also, if you're looking for therapy, NoCD is an app, but they also do telehealth therapy in all states, the United States, and then in several countries, including Australia, UK, and then some provinces in Canada. They're expanding all the time, so if you want to check them out at treatmyocd.com, you can find out where they're located and also sign up for an assessment. I will put it in the description. I'm a slacker sometimes about putting things in the description, so don't judge me. But it will be there at some point on how to click on and do that. So, yay, the topic tonight I wanted to talk about is a little bit of a sensitive topic, one that I've wanted to talk about for a really, really long time. But as you know, in the environment we are in, especially regarding the internet, it sometimes can be kind of scary to talk about topics that can be seen as offensive if people don't understand. So before I get into the topic, I really want to encourage you, if you're here watching this video and you don't understand how OCD works, and you're just here to hear the topic and maybe argue, please visit some of my videos on what OCD is and how it works, especially the ones about sexual orientation OCD, so you can get an understanding of what it means to live with this, and then maybe you can understand how I'm taking this one more step further, and you can get an idea of how the two are related. So check out my other videos here on YouTube if you don't know about OCD, and you might be able to get a better understanding, which is great because the more we can spread awareness about OCD, the better. So today I wanted to talk about a topic that's really important to me because I lived for many years with sexual orientation OCD, and what that means is you have intrusive thoughts and unwanted thoughts about not knowing what your sexuality is. Now, I do want to also tell you that in this video, I'm going to use different themes under that umbrella, but I'm also going to use the transgender intrusive thoughts, that theme, because it's really important. We don't have a lot of information about that out there, but these can be very fluid. And I also want you to know, I understand there's a difference between your sexual orientation and your gender, but lots of times it's fluid in between these themes. So I am going to use them. I'm going to use them in this video a lot, or maybe not. I'm not sure, because y'all know I just do this off the cuff and I don't practice, or I don't edit. Anyway, okay. So let's start. The secondary fears that people feel around having sexual orientation OCD, transgender theme of OCD are: what if people think I'm homophobic? What if people think I am transphobic? What if people think I'm not aligned with the LGBTQIA+ community? What if people find out and think that I'm closeted in being homophobic and transphobic? So here's the thing. What I have found in the last couple years, especially in the last couple years, internet-wise, is that sometimes people are really scared to talk openly how they feel, in fear that the LGBTQIA community is going to not understand where we're coming from when it comes to OCD, and interpret that as something that it's not. And so I wanted to do this video today just to help normalize this for you if this is what you experience. Majority of people that I meet with, majority, who have sexual orientation OCD or transgender themed OCD say, I don't care if that's how I identify, I just know it's not. And in fact, most people go a step further and say, I do not think that there's anything wrong with individuals in the community or that are transgender. It's just that I have thoughts about it and I know that I'm not. And then it makes us and people that have had these themes feel really sad and shameful and guilty. I heard a lot of that this year during Pride Month. This feeling of, we don't choose the themes. We don't choose to have sexual orientation OCD. And to have that theme and to sit there and go, all day, every day of like, I don't think that this is wrong. But I can't stop thinking about that is if it's true for me, how bad it's going to be for me, because I know that that's not what I identify as. That's the crux of it right there. Just some personal stuff about me. So I grew up in the South. If you haven't read my book already, this was in the 90s, y'all. So this was like right around the time that, there was just this heated, hot debate everywhere about how kind of religion and, where the gay community and everything, how people felt about it and what that meant. And in the South with religion, there was just a lot of uproar about it. And when I developed the sexual orientation OCD at 14, and I remember like I'd never in my life had any thoughts about that at all, but I had emetophobia, which is the fear of vomiting. So I knew something was messed up in my head. Like, why do I think about this all the time? Why do I fear this? And then religious scrupulosity, you know how it is. We can go down there forever. But when sexual orientation OCD showed up, I knew something was off. I was like, I don't think that this would change for me overnight or in like a moment. But at that point, there was no internet, there was no anything. And then I was like, who am I going to tell? My dad was a minister, like, you know what I mean? Not that he wouldn't have understood, because he's pretty progressive like that. But like, I wasn't in a community that would have been like, oh, let's talk about it. It would have been like, and I didn't even know how to explain it to someone. I didn't know how to OCD. I just was managing it and not telling anyone. And I just remember thinking, so I didn't have a viewpoint on the LGBTQIA community. And the reason why is back then, it didn't exist for me in kind of this mainstream, everyone talked about it, this is how, it just wasn't known. This was early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And so I didn't have an opinion about it at all. I just didn't identify that way, never thought anything about it. I'd heard stuff, but it just wasn't part of my life. But I remember in the next few years after getting sexual orientation OCD in the form of I identify as straight and I had intrusive thoughts about being gay, I remember thinking like I would not care if I was gay. I would not have cared. I would embrace it. I would probably move out of this house at that point and go somewhere way more progressive. So maybe New York or California. But I would not have cared. That would have just been who I am. And I would have sought out people that accepted me. But there was part of me that just knew. And I remember developing this incredible empathy for people maybe around me in high school at that time, because I was in high school, and then into college, because I'd lived with this for 6 years without knowing what was going on, and thinking like, gosh, I know that I'm not part of that community, but I sure wish that people knew that I would be someone that was an ally, if they could speak out, which they couldn't at that point. I share that with you just to say, like, if there was a point where, I, could have been homophobic, that would have probably been the time. But because of my experience with OCD, it actually went the opposite direction. And I'm so grateful for that. I am. So I get really upset and sad when I see things on the internet, or when I read things that say that people who have sexual orientation OCD, are just homophobic. Because I know that's not true for me, and I know that's not true for a lot of you. And so I just wanted to do a video to validate that for you, that you did not choose these themes, whether it's any of the sexual orientation under the umbrella, the intrusive thoughts about being gay, about being straight, about being bi, about being asexual, and then the intrusive thoughts about trans, so we call it TOCD a lot, the transgender OCD. You did not choose this. You did not choose it. But I know that there, if you were an ally to the community, you feel like you're betraying people by having thoughts you didn't want. So this is just one more sneaky way OCD tries to come in and make you feel shame and guilt. Okay? And then especially if you have friends or you have family and you think to yourself, I can't tell people what my intrusive thoughts are, because what if they think that I think they're wrong and I don't? But because I'm having intrusive thoughts about it, they may not understand that it's not about the theme. It's about OCD latching on to this content. And as much as I do know that the themes matter, I do want to point out in this, that this is a hard point of how, in explaining to people who may not understand, you can say, this theme just showed up for me. I had emetophobia and sexual orientation OCD. Come on now, how did these two... if one is relevant and the other isn't, give me a fucking break. Stop. So anytime anyone ever argues with me about the sexual orientation piece, and there has to be some degree of truth or what, I'm really? Because I don't have a relevant connection to people that vomit. I don't like y'all to do it in front of me. But I'm not anti-vomiters. I just don't want them to do it in front of me. This does sound awful, but you know what I'm saying. There's a big difference. So look, my point of this video is this. Some people may not understand, and that's okay. And you don't have to tell people what your themes are. It's your story to tell. And my hope for you is that if you do, at some point want to share this, and you're sharing it with someone who's maybe a member of the LGBTQI plus community, that they will be able to see that this is not something that you chose, and it has nothing to do with their lifestyle and your judgment on that. I guess, again, you can't help if people do think that. And again, you can be selective about whether or not you're telling someone and whether you don't. And that's the hard part. When I came out for advocacy, this is where this was really hard. I guess I came out with the content piece about 7 years ago, and this was my main theme when I was really, really sick before I got treatment, and this is what I got treatment for. And I remember thinking, what if people misunderstand me? What if they see this as me saying, well, it was wrong. It's wrong to be part of that community, and that's why it was intrusive and I was miserable. No, that's not what it is. I didn't want this to be my theme. It's been painful. And I at one point, my advocacy, I went to one of my good friends, and she's a lesbian, and I had relapsed. And I went to her, and I was as I was coming out of the relapse, and I was like, I have to tell you something. And I told her everything, and I told her about the theme, and she was just like, well, if you were a lesbian, I wouldn't make out with you. And I remember we just laughed, and I cried because I was so worried I was going to hurt her. But the great thing is that she understood, and she, I actually gave her some literature to read, And then we talked about it. So yeah, I'm really sorry if this is impacting you. I'm really sorry if you feel kind of that added shame and guilt. And I know, I think what's so hard about this is that we're forced into having to be silent about this. And I get it. We live in a heteronormative society, right? So if I get the language right, I'm not centering on, heterosexual people, but in a way I am. Because we are also a marginalized community, those of us that live with mental health. And this is a legit theme and one of the most common. And the secondary fear is, and the secondary shame and guilt that comes along with it, it's important that you are normalized. It's important that that's validated, because what it does is it forces you into, the silence, which, as we know, silence breeds shame. The last thing we need is more shame on top of us. I have many people that I know who are, they identify as gay or lesbian, and they have the intrusive thoughts about being straight. And I think that their insight is so incredible, because they're like, no, it doesn't, like, whatever. Let's talk about it, because it feels awful to have it that way around as well. And it's important for us to understand that this does not need to be social justice or politicized. This is the experience that's painful for people, because again, we didn't choose the theme. So I just wanted to do this video. I hope if you're listening and you don't understand OCD, that you got a little insight about what it's like, and that you'll go and watch some videos if you do have OCD. If you do have OCD and you feel offended, that's okay too. You can reach out to me. My website, chrissyhodges.com. I've had this experience. This is part of my journey. I'm more than welcome to talk to you a little bit more about it and help you understand, or understand my perspective at least. For those of you that this video helped, I'm glad. You can still be supportive and an ally to the LGBTQ community, even while having these intrusive thoughts. And I know it feels icky and awful and you wish you didn't have them, but here we are, and you're not alone. More information about my services, chrissyhodges.com, peer support and referral consultations, and follow me on Instagram at pureoChrissy if you're over there and just want kind of a daily dose of info about all this and life experiences in general. Love y'all, and I will see you next time. Bye.